everyone for tuning in to my channel. This is Donna Makita Bradley with the Book of Makita 411. So, what are we going to talk about today? So much going on in the world. So let's chat.
Well, hello. Thanks for coming back. I'm here too. It's late too. It's 11:49, almost midnight, but that's okay. I love burning the midnight oil. But I want to thank you guys for coming if you're watching me. Anyway, I'm gonna open up my fortune cookie first. Hope you guys had a great day today, or you made it a great day. I want to show you. Ooh, this is interesting. I'm gonna put this on my video because I just opened this cookie and I want to see what it says. What does my fortune cookie say? It says, "What's vice today may be virtue tomorrow." Hmm. Can y'all see that? So you don't think I just said that? Even though I would never say something like that. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But anyway, so it's been a interesting beginning of this week. I just got off of work about 3 hours ago and spent about an hour and a half in traffic, and thought about some things about what I could talk about on the Book of Nikita today. And it's something that's been bugging me big time, so I'm gonna share it with you. Not bugging me, but it's just something that's going on right now in the world. Even the whole thing with the internet, like when I'm trying to look up research now, so I can cite what I'm talking about. There's not a lot of really current information that pops up right away. Like you have to really be specific about it. And that might have to do with something with the whole thing about, this thing about regulating the internet, regulating the internet, which, that's a whole nother story and something I can talk about later. But today, what I want to talk about is this whole thing about psyops. Say it again, psyops. Because there's a lot of going on in the world today. Like every time I turn around, you're hearing the news about these major things that are going on in the world that really, affect a lot of people emotionally, psychologically. So, I'm starting to think about that, like when my last video I talked about what do you want to believe in? Well, it's hard to really think about what to believe in today if you really understand what psych ops are. So maybe that's the first thing is to really understand, as I love to always do, the true definition of what psych ops are. Because I know we've probably heard them, but what is it? Okay, psych ops is really short for psychological operations, which means are planned operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. So we now know the definition of what psychological operations are. And so now I want to speak about how it's something that's going on today. And I'm going to also include this one, PSYOPs, Can you see that? Psyops. Okay. Psyops. Psychological operations described in Washington Post. Psyops seek to exploit human vulnerabilities and I say enemy, whatever I just said, enemy governments, militaries, and populations to pursue national and battlefield objectives. The feasibility had been established of projecting large three-dimensional objects that appeared to float in the air. A super secret program was established in 1994 to persuade this very technology for PSYOPs application. The holographic projector. Holographic projector is described in a classified Air Force document as a system to project information powerful from space for special operations deceptive missions. And then there's this letter on this Washington Post article. Okay, can you see that? Washington. Ooh, it's all blurry. I'll leave a link. Dear friends, PSYOPs may be an unfamiliar term to you, yet it is of crucial importance. PSYOPs, or psychological operations, is a term used in military and government intelligence networks to exploit human vulnerabilities in enemy governments, militaries, and populations to pursue national and battlefield objectives, as quoted from the Washington Post article, and it says below. So I'll leave the link. Stated more simply, PSYOPs is a means of intentionally deceiving targeted individuals and populations through a variety of sophisticated methods for specific objectives. I'm gonna stop there and leave a link, and you guys can read more. And I'm just gonna say this about that. You know, um, it's really hard when you're understanding a definition of what psychological warfare is really about, and the whole idea of television, that we're constantly being bombarded with propaganda. Okay? But what's deeper than propaganda to me is the psyops. Because there's a lot of times you hear things on the news. I hear things on the news and I'm like, wow, really? I don't know. I think a little different. I'm like, why did that make the news today? Like, what's really that about? I'll give you an example. And I don't want to sound like I'm not passionate about it and that wasn't a great cause. But it's like, why did it make the news, like national news, where this boy did the donuts for the police officers? You remember? I don't know if anybody out there that heard the news about the boy who did this whole thing about donuts and police officers. He went out and bought donuts for police officers, and there was this whole little slogan about something with the donuts and police officers. But it got me to thinking that's just a small, minute way of looking at what a psychological thing about what you hear on the news and how it affects you. Because you're thinking, either, oh, oh, that's such a sweet thing, the boys bringing donuts. But then there's this other thing where you're like, why is that news when there's so much other things? And I gotta stop saying things. There's so much other news out there that is bigger than that. And I don't want to talk about this one big thing that's been floating around on YouTube that involves a murder at an exquisite hotel. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I could put the names out, but I'm not really trying to get into all that. It's already been stirred. Like I said, I don't want to stir the pot. I'm just marinating in other things. But it did make me think about it, because now it's like there's so much going on with that you're just going to go, wait, it just has to be some kind of production going on with this. I'm going to say it from the Sandy Hook, from the Vegas thing, from the 911, from everything that is such big news and what is real and fake news. You also have to look at what is really the psychological warfare that's going on with the news in the world today. Why are we so being set up for all these productions of tragedy? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about why is there so much going on that it pulls on the whole nation's heartstrings and it makes major news, but there's so many other little stories in your neighborhood, things that are going on that are even a lot more heartfelt, when it comes to your own community, things that are going on in your very own community. But the national news is this whole thing about, the masses and how they feel about something and the emotional strain and pull on it, that everyone's talking about the same thing, like as in a general sense. I don't know. It makes me sometimes listen to news in a different light, And again, I don't want to act like I'm not compassionate about some of the things that go on with the victims in these Psyop type of operations. And believe me, they even have casting calls. You guys look it up. There's casting calls. They ask people to come in and, play a certain part so they can have a scenario of things that happen. And even in some of that scenarios, you will sign a waiver that if something happens to you, you agree to do it. So when people die in these things, you go, oh, how tragic. But the truth is they signed up for it. Let the truth be the truth. And if it isn't the truth, well, it isn't the truth. But there is some truth about psychological warfare. And it's really being pushed a lot, along with the whole thing of really censoring what kind of information gets out. That's we'll talk about that later. But the whole thing about the internet used to be, you can search the internet and get real good information, current information. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it seems that now you don't get the most current information because there's a change going on. Yeah, there's a change. But really, the whole thing with the psychological warfare that's going on right now in the news, in the media, I just have to say this, y'all. Just recognize what the truth is for you. Balance yourself, find your own vibrations, live your life the best way you can, find the truth where you can, be a purpose in life for what you stand for, because today we just don't know. They call it fake news, or what do they call it? Those flags, false flags. There's a lot of false flags out there, y'all. Don't believe everything that you see on TV. Tell a vision. And I got that from one of my friends. He was going to get Kenny B, you told me that one. Yeah, and I've always looked at that. Yes, tell a vision. So, anyway, that's my video for tonight, and I'm glad you guys are watching. And if you want to leave a comment or not, just watch me and click on to somebody else. It doesn't matter. This is like I said, my chance to really share with you some of my thoughts. And if you care, listen. If you don't, you don't have to. And if you disagree with me, you can comment. But you can always press like, subscribe, share, leave me an email. And then always remember what I always say. You know, make it a great day.